Revenge films.
My name is Michael. Around the time that I first got married to my wife Kelly, we were living in a municipal housing complex. But when I got home one day, I saw a side of my wife I had never seen before, and she was wrestling with a man that I had never seen before. On that day, my work took a lot longer than usual, and I was working overtime. I didn't get home until just past 9 in the evening. When I climbed the stairs to the city housing complex and arrived at the hallway on the 3rd floor where we were living, I suddenly heard a "Ugh!" The sound of a man crying out echoed through the hallway, followed by "Ah!" which was definitely the scream of my wife's voice that came through the hallway from my apartment. I had originally told my wife that I was going to be home around 10 at night, and the first thought that I had was, wait a minute, no way, is she cheating on me? Am I about to walk in on that? That thought crossed my mind and pierced my heart. My wife didn't seem like the type that would ever cheat on me, but my heart was pounding as I approached my apartment door. I slowly inserted the key and quietly opened the door. But to my shock, right in front of me was my wife, completely naked, straddling a man and putting him in a wrestling move called the reverse shrimp hold as he was struggling. I couldn't understand what was going on in front of me at all. I stood at the front doorway in complete shock, and all I could do was stand there and stare at my wife and this man. But then my wife noticed me, and she yelled out to me,
Michael, hurry up and call the police. The police, this man is a criminal.
Without breaking her hold on this mysterious man, she started demanding that I call the police. What? Criminal? Call the police? What is going on here? Inside of my mind, I was going into a mini panic attack, but then the man that was underneath my naked wife started crying out to me. Hurry, please! Please help me! It hurts! Ow! And this time, the mystery man started begging me for help. I was looking back and forth at the two of them, and my wife's eyes were dead serious, but so were the guy's eyes. For the time being, I felt like I was able to understand that my wife wasn't cheating on me. So I decided to obey my wife's orders and call the police. I asked them to come as soon as possible, and immediately after calling 911, they first asked, 911, what's your emergency? When they asked me that, I truly didn't know how to explain the situation. The only thing I could do was to tell them exactly what was in front of me, which was my naked wife and an unknown man in a wrestling position. So of course the police were just as confused as I was. At this rate, it wasn't gonna solve anything at all, so I just gave the police my address, and I said, anyway, please just get here as soon as possible. And in response, reluctantly, the police said, okay, we'll be there shortly. Their response wasn't exactly the most settling, but they agreed to come to my house, so that was a relief. Before the police arrived, I wanted to make sure my wife could put some clothes on, so I took my wife's place and held the mystery man down. Even though the man was fairly skinny, he was about the same height as me, and I was close to 6 feet tall. My wife was 5 feet tall, and I was amazed that my wife was able to get him into a reversed shrimp hold and have him in so much pain. Normally, I think I would be feeling an intense anger at this mystery man who saw my wife's naked figure, but it was such a strange and unbelievable situation that I had even forgotten to get angry, and I was simply at a loss for words. Once my wife put on some clothes, she came back into the living room, but I said, Kelly, you stay over there and go in the room, don't come near here. And I made sure the mystery man couldn't go anywhere near her. When the police arrived, the man was arrested and taken away. And my wife finally spoke.
That was so scary. This man just came out of nowhere and...
and with tears streaming down her face, she was explaining the situation to the police. After I heard my wife's animalistic screaming voice and the sight of her wrestling this man like a monster while naked, I can only imagine I was watching her with a complicated look on my face. But luckily, the man had been caught. And as for who this mystery intruder was, we found out that he was actually a resident in the same housing complex, and that he was the husband of an acquaintance of my wife. When he was questioned by the police, he said that his motive for this was because he heard from somewhere that my wife and I were going to be going to Hawaii for our honeymoon. When he heard that, he thought that we shouldn't be going to Hawaii when he didn't have any money and wasn't able to go anywhere for his honeymoon, and that's why he tried to sneak in to rob our apartment. I then heard the chain of events that led to the situation. What happened was that my wife had come home while this man was robbing our empty apartment. But at the time, my wife didn't notice that he was there, and she went straight inside to take a bath. But that meant that the apartment was empty with just one naked woman in the house, and apparently the man started to get carried away by the situation instantly, and he thought about sexually assaulting my wife. He then slowly opened up the door to the bathroom, and he quietly approached my wife in the bath. And from behind, he reached out his arm to try to grab her. My wife sensed that something was wrong, and when she turned around, there was an unknown man standing right behind her, so she screamed.
Ah!
And while she was screaming, she instantly grabbed the man's arm and she put him into the wrestling move called a cobra twist. Actually, my wife was an extremely passionate professional wrestling fan, and she studied martial arts up until college. Even after she graduated from college, she kept in shape by working out almost every day at home. That's why the mystery man didn't stand a chance. My wife was so strong that the criminal realized he wasn't going to be able to fight her, and so he tried to get my wife off of him and ran out of the bathroom. But my wife wasn't gonna let him get away, so even though she was still naked, she chased after him and was able to grab him just before the front door. And then she held him down, and just as she had put him in a reverse shrimp hold and pinned him, that was when I came home. And that was the chain of events. In the end, when the police inspected the man's belongings, not only had he taken our passports and our travel tickets, but also money, cash, our bank card, credit cards, and our seal. He had taken almost all of our assets that we had at home, and it was a disaster. I heard that normally it's difficult for an amateur to find bank books and other valuable items in such a short amount of time from somebody's house, but the guy had somehow found all of our assets in our apartment within 20 minutes of breaking into it. And that's why the police started to suspect that perhaps this wasn't his first crime. And because there had been a number of reports about robberies at home in the area, the police launched an investigation thinking that there could be a connection between them. Even if our apartment was his first crime, it was going to leave more than enough of a criminal record, and the police said that he would easily be placed behind bars. And, well, everything we heard after that were all rumors, but there were also talks that his wife was actually an accomplice. 2 days after all of the investigations were started at our apartment, the mystery man's wife had already moved out of their apartment. However, judging by how quickly they were moved out of the apartment, the rumor was that maybe the wife was also arrested by the police. Also, the day that this incident occurred with my wife, we heard that a neighbor found her crying and screaming in the area, saying that she broke her leg and that she was carried away in an ambulance. My wife and I lived on the 4th floor of the building, so when we heard that, we thought that maybe she jumped off of the balcony on our 4th floor, and it all came together. Because the front door was already blocked by my naked wife and the man wrestling in the doorway. But never in a million years did I think that my wife's obsession with professional wrestling was gonna come to use in a way like this. To be honest, I never really understood the appeal of professional wrestling, and after we got married, I didn't think that she needed to train so hard in order to stay fit when I already thought she was beautiful. But in a huge turn of events this time, my wife saved us. If my wife was a normal housewife who didn't train that hard or know those moves, even if she was shocked by the man who broke into our apartment, she probably wouldn't have been able to fight back like that. And not only that, but on that day I was stuck working overtime and was in the office until late. It just so happened that I was able to go home right at that time. But if I had taken any longer that day and my wife wasn't able to defend herself, she definitely would have been assaulted by that man. When I think about it like that, it still sends chills down my spine to this day. I'm just so grateful that my wife was fine and wasn't hurt. And, well, as for what happened to my wife after that, even though it was an emergency situation and she had no choice, she was really upset that a man that wasn't her husband saw her fully naked body. On the day of the incident, given the circumstances surrounding the incident, a female police officer was placed in charge of my wife and dealt with the situation kindly. And during the questioning, my wife was focused on telling the story. But after that, she said that she couldn't stand the thought that an unknown man had seen her naked body, and it took her a while to recover. She said that in the moment she knew that she needed to do something or else she would get taken advantage of, and that her instincts moved. And so, the moment that the situation was cleared and she came back to face the reality of the situation, the police officer said she was so upset that she broke down in tears. When I heard that, I have to admit that I felt pretty guilty. Because I heard the screaming voice coming from inside the apartment, I knew that my wife must have been truly terrified. Even if she had done martial arts, even if she studied professional wrestling, my wife was still a woman. And I realized that no matter how strong she might be, there's no way that she wouldn't have been scared of an adult man trying to assault her with his full strength as well. After all of that, and knowing how scared my wife must have been, and to celebrate the fact that the criminal was arrested and in place behind bars, we went on our honeymoon and I made sure to treat my wife as well as I could. In the beginning, my wife had said that because it was our honeymoon, she wanted to take more time and spend more days in Hawaii. But I didn't think that I would be able to take so much time off of work, so our plan was to only go for 3 days and 2 nights. But after everything that happened, I went to beg my boss, and I also spoke to my colleagues and explained the situation to them to try to ask for an extension of the holiday. But then my boss said, "You idiot! If you try to cut this short, then you're going to regret it later. This is your honeymoon, for goodness sake. You should take all the time that you want. You have plenty of days of leave left anyway." And he was quick to agree. Even my colleague said, "That's right, this is your honeymoon. You should go and enjoy it to the max. And I can only imagine how scared your wife must have been, so you should go and make sure that her mind is only filled with fun times. Oh, but you better not forget some souvenirs for us." Just like that, I was able to succeed in getting a full week of vacation from work. And after that, I called the hotel and not only changed our reservation, but also upgraded our room. Because we extended our trip to 1 week, we packed a few more clothes into our suitcases, and we headed off towards our vacation in the best mood. Thanks to being able to get a full week off of work, and because I also upgraded the hotel room as a surprise for my wife, she was thrilled, and she spent the entire honeymoon smiling from start to finish. Even though our apartment was broken into by a thief, In the end, my wife said that it resulted in the best honeymoon ever and that she was fully satisfied, and I was relieved to hear that. After that incident, and seeing my wife catch the criminal with those moves to make sure that he was arrested on the spot, I actually developed a little interest in professional wrestling. When we got back home, my wife and I went to go see a match together, and it was actually pretty fun. These days, the two of us go fully prepared with our wrestling goods and regularly go to cheer on our favorite wrestlers.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.